Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar R Espino. Hello, welcome back. It is your friend Cesar R Espino. You are at the You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, and today I have a guest. His name is Nick Fedderly. How are you, Nick?
Good. You?
I am doing wonderful. Great. Let me give you a little bit of background on Nick, and then we can dive into it. By the way, you can follow us and find us on www.cesarrespino.com. So let me give you a background on Nick. Nick actually battled with some drug addiction in his youth. He ended his hockey career as a result of that. Spent time in juvenile detention. He then joined the army, got a girl pregnant, deployed to Mexico, and then came back home after that. And just to really face divorce, then he started battling drinking problems. Got into a lot of legal trouble, and he has been through two bankruptcies and 2 divorces by the age of 30. So definitely a lot of stuff happened to you prior to the age of 30. Why don't we just get started there? Like, what happened in your youth that you were going through all these challenges?
Honestly, it was boils down to the crowd of people that you hang out with. It fell with a lot of my teammates in hockey that started using, smoking pot. So it started with pot. Then it was, hey, here's some meth. And it went into meth. And then it just cycled into ultimately surrounding yourself with the wrong crowd.
Yeah.
Essentially what that boiled down to.
Right. Let me ask you something though. Like I know a lot of people face that, and maybe they can learn from your experience, right? Because that's part of the thing too. Is like we want to be able to educate people, and we want to be able to give people the ability to maybe see things from a different perspective and get different choices. Why do you feel like you ended up in that place? Was it because you were looking for acceptance? Because I know a lot of times, many times I've talked to other people. When they feel like they're not accepted or they don't feel like they're part of a community, whether it's at home or someplace else, then they'll find this group of people, whether they believe to be a good group of people or not, is a community, is that joint. I mean, I just want to get your perspective on that.
It's for me, it's tough to say.
Okay.
I did go through some, setbacks as far as family wise. My biological dad's actually still in prison right now for meth.
Okay.
So he was never really around
Got it.
to begin with. My stepdad, who basically raised me up until the age of like 14 or so, him and my mom ended up getting a divorce. And that kind of set things,
the
spiral motion down.
Right.
And then me and my mom never have really got along. So I mean, we can get along for an hour in the same room, but we do not see eye to eye.
Got it.
Anything. And then she started dating, I don't even know how old he was, maybe 28, 27. Not much older than I was, which I thought was pretty weird and awkward. So I think I just started to rebel.
Got it.
I didn't like the situation. I didn't like what was going on. So I think ultimately I just rebelled and had a mentality that I'm going to do whatever I want. And there's nobody that's going to stop me.
Got it.
So I can't really pinpoint what caused the spark in the drug addiction at that point. But I feel that kind of everything happening around contributed.
Got it. Yeah, and it might appear and it might seem that because of all the challenges you're going through in your own personal life with your family, you found hockey. So hockey, was that something for you to like kind of forget about everything and distract yourself from that reality to an extent?
Hockey was my life.
Got it.
I still actually play hockey to this day.
Yeah.
And I coach a Bantam team here in Woodbury as well. So hockey's always been a huge part of my life. And I think that was kind of my escape because I love to play hockey. But then the drug addiction took over.
Right, and that's what I was going to, right? So you found something that kind of got you out of that mode and kind of your escape, way to not be part of that, that challenge you were having with your family. Yet then you found a group of people, whether right or wrong, were not the right people for you, because they might have had some habits that you ended up kind of probably taking from that. And one thing that I see a lot is that people sometimes what they do is to be able to feel like they're part of a community. So like, and I don't know if that's your case. I want to hear that from you, but to be part of the community, you're like, okay, so if these people are drinking and that's kind of like the group that I'm hanging around with, now I'm kind of forced to drink so that I can feel accepted or be part of that group and feel like I'm part of that clique, right? And then people do that without realizing that down the line, they're hurting themselves. Was that similar to you?
It was. Thinking back on it, I know that at that point in time, I thought it was cool.
Right.
Going to school, and I was the troublemaker, and everybody knew my name.
Yeah.
I think it was more or less the feeling of kind of feeling cool, feeling accepted. Everybody knows my name, but for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, got it. And it probably felt good though. I mean, like, okay, I'm popular, or
Right.
something to that extent. Except, like you said, it was for the wrong reasons. I spoke to another guy too who had very similar, story like yours, and also throughout his youth, he had gone through a lot of drug addictions and just, it was that, and obviously his case was a little bit worse than that. He was not born here. He was actually born in Mexico City, and then he got deported. Now he cannot come back to the States, but he has turned his life around because of that. And sometimes you have to go through some of those pains to get the reward at the end of the day. And I'm not saying that's the right thing, except that sometimes you have to go through that. So at what age did you started, rebelling against, your family, and maybe even started with the drugs?
It had to have been around age 15.
Okay.
14, 15 time frame. Went through tons of trials and tribulations just with my mom.
Yeah.
In general, and juvenile detention center and this and that. And I was on high risk probation where I had my PO would come over at 2:00 in the morning to make sure I was home. He would show up the next morning at my school to make sure I was in school. And one slip and I was back in jail.
Yeah.
So then the turmoil caused more tension between me and my mom. And then I think it was somewhere around the age of 16, I was just out on my own.
Wow.
So I would say probably a good 2 years of rebelling.
Yeah.
Living with my mom and then out on my own. So probably about 14.
14. Well, at what age did you first got into legal trouble and ended up in detention?
I think that was at 15.
15, yeah. So once you decided to, you're like, I'm doing this on my own, like, what was going through your mind during those moments, and what did you do, when you said, I'm separating myself from my mom, and obviously you were still in those habits, but what was going through your mind? Like,
I think that's a tough one because I'm not there no more.
Yeah, which is good.
I think it was almost like I don't give a shit attitude.
Got it.
I'm having fun. I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and nobody's going to stop me.
Yeah.
At that point in time, juvenile detention couldn't even stop me.
Yeah.
I would do my time. I would get out, and I'd go right back to the same thing.
Right.
So I think it was just that I don't care attitude.
Got it. And if you were to go back right now and you were to go talk to your past self and you were to give your past self an advice, what would that advice be in that particular moment?
As far as doing the
As
drug,
far as obviously knowing what you know now that, obviously that was not the right thing to do. If you can go back to your past self and prevent from any of that stuff from happening, what would be your advice that you give yourself?
I think it'd be a clearer vision of the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
It's it's definitely true. You become who you surround yourself with, and I believe that had I maybe taken that a little more seriously back then, or at least knew it,
Yeah. Right.
it would have been completely different.
Yeah. No.
So I think that'd be the big one I would focus on.
And again, and I think that's a huge one, right? For those that are listening or are watching us and they're going through something similar, or maybe someone that's going through that. I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to that. It's like you are the average of the 5 people you hang around with. And one thing that I tell people all the time is that when you're in a group of people, in a group of settings, whether it's 5 or 10 or 20, doesn't matter. The average 5 are going to be the ones that are going to help you. And you have to have a clear vision too, right? You have to understand, where do you want to go, what are you trying to accomplish? And if you're in something similar, it's like, ask yourself this question: is this the life that I want to have and carry on for the rest of my life? Or can I see myself doing this in another 10, 15 years? If the answer is no, or you're doubting yourself, you have to get out of that situation. You have to get out of that group of environment and start changing your life, right? And obviously, like you said, if you had a clearer vision and if you took that more serious, you could have definitely done something different about it. Which I'm sure now you're definitely sharing that information with people and to an extent empowering them to not fall into some of those things that you did, right?
Correct. Yep. Couldn't agree.
Got it. And so what happened? So then you went to the army. Is that another escape way for you to like escape from that, or why did you end up in the army?
So, I don't remember exactly what the circumstances were. I know that I finished school, which was shocking. I made up like 4 years worth of credits in a year.
Wow.
And ended up graduating on time with my class. So there was a brief moment where I was sober.
Okay.
And that would have been kind of like my senior year. I got sober for a while, and I was that's when I was on my own. So I was going to school full-time, plus working a full-time overnight job at a gas station. So I was just occupied.
Mm-hmm.
Once I graduated, though, I started to use again. And that was a combination of probably not being busy anymore and then being in the same setting with the same people, right? So it was one day I just said, you know what? I got to leave. I got to get out of this town. What can I do? And I've always been an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, went to the local recruiting station and said, hey, sign me up. When's the earliest I can ship out? By the next month, I was gone.
Wow.
So it was a really quick transition.
Yeah.
But it was a huge turning point in my life, because that was the last time that I was addicted. That was the last time that I've done that, and ever since then, I've been able to say, hey, to many people, and some people might not agree with this statement I'm about to say,
mm-hmm.
but at the end of the day, it's your choice.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't buy the whole addiction thing. It's your choice. If you want to be sober, you'll be sober. If
right.
you need to get out of that situation, you'll find a way to do it. So it's basically, I just left all my excuses behind and did it.
Yeah. It comes down to, it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it came down to the point where you hear that saying, I'm tired of when you, what is it? Enough is enough. And right. Yeah, exactly. Right. So it came down to that, right? For years, like, I had enough is enough, and I'm tired of living this life. So you have to make a choice to be able to change that habit or that aspect of your life. And so for you ended up doing that, and you took action, right? So it comes down to, and I agree with you on that too. Like anything you want to do in life, it comes down to one thing: is deciding, choosing, right? Things don't happen, they don't happen for to you; they happen for you, right? And so whatever you decide to do is gonna take place. And so you decided, you know what, I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna take my life to a different aspect. Now, the challenge here, and I'm sure we're gonna talk about this in a second, is that just by you deciding I want to be this different person doesn't mean it's gonna be easy. It's gonna take that certainty. It's gonna take dedication. It's gonna take persistence. It's gonna take a lot of different aspects and steps to continue to stay there. Except that's the very first step. And so I know a lot of times people say, well, I'm not gonna smoke anymore. I'm not gonna drink anymore. I'm not gonna be addicted, or I'm not gonna do this or that. And they feel like just because they're saying that is going to go away, and then they forget to do the actions, and then they get back to it again, right? Right. So anyways, you decided to say, you know what, I'm not doing this. I need to have a new life, get shipped out and do something different. You go to the Army, except you were still kind of facing some of those challenges, right? So you got somebody pregnant, and tell me more about that.
Yeah, so basically, long story short, I went to basic training. I went to Fort Benning, Georgia. I think I came home maybe January or December of that year. I can't remember. And then we got orders down to the Mexico border. And we spent, I want to say, somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks, I think, down there. Got back home from that deployment, or mini deployment, you could call it. And we had orders to leave the following month to Kosovo.
Okay.
So during that time frame, my girlfriend at the time, my kid's mom, she ended up getting pregnant right before the deployment. So I deployed, she got pregnant, and then I ended up coming home for a family death, I believe. And then we got married at that point in time to also help her out with the bills and everything associated with having a baby and her being home by herself, right? And then I deployed, kid was born. I came home for 2 weeks to see him. And then I think the next time I seen him, he was like 4 or 5 months old, something like that. Yeah. So then I got home, and obviously I was on a different wave than she was. She's been taking care of a kid. She's been holding down the home front, and I was deployed, right? So I was selfish and came home, and I was like, hey, I want to go fishing. I want to do this. It was all about me and what I wanted to do. Like, hey, just like 1.5 years of my life was taken, and I want it back, right?
Right. Yeah.
It was the complete wrong mentality to have. Instead of bringing my kid to daycare so I could go out fishing, I should have been hanging out with them.
Right. Yeah. Definitely.
So my priorities were wrong, and it was again that thinking process, right? Of feeling sorry for myself for being gone, and me wanting to get my time back, which turned selfish and then led to a divorce.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's that's a common thing that we see a lot. One of the things that I do too, I'm an NLP practitioner, neuro-linguistic programming practitioner, and what you just described is it's tied into what is called the drama cycle. And the drama cycle is consisted of a couple of different things, right? Different elements. You have the perpetrator, you have the victim, and you have the rescuer. You are playing the role of being the victim, and a lot of times, unfortunately, 95% of the people, and those are some of the statistics right now, I think it's either 90 or 95% of the people are in this drama cycle that they're either playing one of those roles, and it's not a good place to be, right? Because again, in your case, you're like, well, I'm the victim, I was just gone, I want to do this, you're being selfish, and you're not thinking about all the different things, and when things are not going your way, you're still playing the victim, and then it leads to consequences. In this case, it caused your divorce and and all that gets, all that stuff, right? So a lot of people do definitely go through that, and you got to be able to go back and like you said, it's all on the mindset, right?
Right.
And being able to change that. So you lost your wife, to a divorce, and then at which point did you have bankruptcies? Because you said you had two bankruptcies too, right?
That year,
Okay.
that year I filed
Okay.
bankruptcy. Yep.
Yeah.
I forget exactly the details that surrounded that. I think part of it was the house we owned was in that same town. And I knew for the better sake of myself that I couldn't be there or shouldn't be there. I was going to go down another road.
Yeah.
And at that point, I already started drinking heavily again. So long story short, when I got home from overseas, they warn you, hey, you're probably pay attention to your drinking, right? A lot of people that come home, they weren't allowed to drink for a year and a half, whatever the case may be, they warn you. And I
can do this. It's no big deal. Right.
Well, then it led to a 12-pack plus every night just to go to sleep.
Damn. Yeah.
So with all of that going on, plus the divorce, plus the bankruptcy, at that point in time, I think that I filed, and that was just to kind of start new, start fresh, and move out of the town again. If I remember right. And
yeah.
I think that was the case.
Was that another, so would you see that experience, obviously there was a lot of things taking place, right? So would you consider that being another downfall or another moment of clarity to do something bigger and greater?
I think both.
Okay.
To be honest, because it was a downfall. But at the same time, today anyways.
Yeah.
It provided a lot of clarity as well.
Right.
Maybe clarity I didn't see at that point in time. But today, it's a lot clearer now than what it was.
Now, and you didn't let that experience, obviously it's a downfall, you didn't let that experience victimize you of becoming and creating something for yourself, right? I mean, because a lot of times that's what, that's one thing. People tend to fall down, and they fail and they fail and they fail and they stay down. And so, the one thing that I can, maybe tell our people that are listening and watching this is that, you can go through a lot of failures. You're going to have them. There's no way you can escape them. They're going to happen either way. The challenge here for any of us is, what do we do about that failure? Do you stay down or do you get up and do something? And it seems to me like, yes, it was a downfall for you, but like you said, it was also a clarity moment where you didn't stay as a victim in that moment.
I don't think I did. I do know that I went into a little extreme party mode afterwards, for a little while anyways.
Yeah.
And then I started, so I was a union carpenter at that time. So I did a lot of commercial buildings, things like that. And I forget what year it was. Anyways, I connected with a job soup at one of my jobs. It was actually down in Illinois, and he was like, "Hey Nick," he's like, "grab the bull by the horns, and I'm going to teach you how to be a foreman, right? Or run work."
Yep.
And then I kind of steered off into that direction, but at the same time, I was still dealing with the drinking, right? So I was going up, but I was also going back at the same time. So I think that it brought clarity in many ways, but it also didn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to explain that aspect of it.
Right. No, that's that. And again, it's definitely a challenging. I can see it could have been a very challenging moment. And so, even going back and forth, I think that the lesson here, and I always go back to anything that happens, and I ask myself, what is the lesson to be learned here? Whatever happened here, whether it's good or bad, there has to be a lesson, right? What is that lesson? And then once you learn that lesson, then you know how to react to it as you move forward, right?
Right.
So the first divorce didn't work out, or the first marriage, sorry, didn't work out. So you got divorced, then you got married again. What happened there?
That one's a fresh one too.
Oh, okay.
That's like 16 months ago.
Yep.
Um,
I'm right behind you. It's been about 2 years for me, 24 months. So
Oh,
right behind you.
you're right behind me. What happened with that is looking with a clear eye view now. Dealt with a very, very narcissistic person. And it got to the point where I was being drugged down so much and trying to be, like you said, you got the victim, the rescuer.
Yep.
So I turned into the rescuer with her.
You were rescuing her. She was the victim. You were the rescuer. Yeah.
Correct. Yep. And but I would constantly get pulled down into the hole.
Yeah.
And she would leave me there. I would have to get myself out, and then we started fighting a lot. She would purposely start fights with me to leave, go drink, go snort cocaine, do whatever she wanted to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eat, whatever. So it just got to the point where it was, okay, yeah, I care about you. Yes, I love you. But I also love myself, and I'm not doing this anymore with you.
Yeah.
And it was, I remember it very clear. We had it was like right around Christmas of 2018, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
She had punched me in the jaw. And that was like the fifth time she's done it.
Yeah.
And then and there, I had to kind of take a look, and I was like, if this continues, who's going to be the one in trouble eventually?
Right.
It's going to be me.
It's going to be you. Yeah. And especially if you already have a history, they're going to pinpoint that to that, and wherever the facts, it doesn't matter at that point. I can see that.
Right. So I filed an order for protection against her. And that way I could have her removed out of my house.
Yep.
Well, I did that, and then we didn't talk for a while, but she was going to school to be a nurse. And I knew that had I kept this in place, it could hinder her from getting her job or whatever the case was, so I didn't want to do that either. So I lifted it, and come to find out, she was living with her kid's dad at the time. And they got into a domestic on Super Bowl of 2019, right? I was out in North Carolina. I ended up coming home to help her again, rescue, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I told her to come back to my house, and the whole 9 yards, we would, figure it out. It wasn't no more than 30 days later, I seen enough. And I said, here's divorce papers. Like, I'm not doing this with you any longer. And that it was a hard decision, but it was the best decision.
Right. Do you guys have any kids together, or?
We have no kids together. None.
Okay. Got it. So the other reason why I ask, and I want to, get more on this, oftentimes people go through this, right? You're in a relationship because of the kids, and obviously you guys don't have a kid, and some they stay in a relationship with kids because they feel like that's the best thing for the kids, even though they're fighting, they're arguing, they're having disagreements all over the place. Or sometimes people stay together in a relationship because they feel like nobody's gonna want me, even if there's no kids. No one's gonna want me, and I'd rather be in this abusive, controlling relationship, or whatever the case may be, because there's nothing for me out in the world, right? And people get hung up on that a lot. And so your advice on that would be, what would your advice, number one? Obviously, it wasn't an easy decision, and you did it. So what was your advice for you taking that decision?
I think the advice would just be, you gotta take care of yourself before you can worry about others.
I like that. Yep. If
you're in a position like that, and I mean, I'm nobody to talk. This is a recent, I
Yeah.
was in that position, but at the end of the day, what's your self-worth? And if you believe that you are somebody, or you can be somebody, or you are a genuine person, and you're really ultimately trying to do the best for somebody, and that's not reciprocated, it's probably time to leave that situation. Because again, we're falling back to the 5 people, core group of people you're around, right? Sooner or later, that's going to rub off on you, and you're going to be in a situation that you don't want to be in. It's just a matter of time.
Right. And that's the good point to this is that I love how you put it. You have to take care of yourself first. You have to know what is your value, and not so much your value to other people, your value to yourself, right? And along those lines, I like the fact that you have to, one, surround yourself with the right people. Number two is how much do you value yourself, and how much do you care for yourself? And so, even if it's a family member, a spouse or something like that, sometimes, you have to say to that person, I love you and we cannot be together anymore. I love you and we have to take our own separate ways, at least until this becomes more healthy, right? And it's not an easy thing to do, yet it's the right thing to do for yourself, more than anything. And even the person, you're helping that person too, because you're getting them off of that drama cycle too. You're not, I'm not going to rescue you anymore. I'm not going to give that to you anymore. Not here. If you want to do it someplace else, go ahead and do that. Except here, I want to help you, and I'm not helping you by rescuing you in this drama cycle. So, yeah. So obviously, you had all this, going on for your life, and you're definitely a person that I can honestly say you truly can overcome anything. You've overcome a lot of different obstacles. You've gone through a lot of different things, challenges in your life. Let's talk about you now. What are you doing now? You have what do you have going on? Obviously, you play hockey. You're a coach. What else do you do in your professional life?
So now that she left my life, I was able to get on and get on with my life in the direction I wanted to go. I was extremely unhappy in the construction field.
Okay.
I hated working 6 a.m. to 3 o'clock every day. I hated the fact that I couldn't bring my son to school, things like that, right? So once she left, I jumped in. I always knew that there's better ways to make money and be happy and create a lifestyle that fits what you want, right? For me, that was, I wanted time freedom, and I wanted to not live paycheck to paycheck, and I wanted to be in control of how much I make by how hard I work, right?
Right.
So I got into the storm restoration field with a buddy of mine. The owner actually helped me out tremendously, making the transition from hourly to commission. That's not an easy transition to make.
Right. Yeah.
So I did that, and after everything kind of settled down, it was last year, kind of probably April, May, I really dived headfirst into that. Went out to North Carolina. I think for 3 months, I sold probably $250,000 out there.
Wow.
And then a storm hit here in Minnesota.
Yep.
So I came back with me and one other guy, and we basically had nothing, right? Except our home office here. So we kind of built everything up, and over the course of from August to, I'd say, November, I actually crossed the line of $1 million producer at that point.
Wow.
So that was really a huge goal of mine, was to hit that $1 million mark and say, hey, I did this. There's no reason you can't.
Right.
You got to stay dedicated, and you got to stay on the path.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been doing. Obviously, this winter's been slow.
Yeah.
So it's been more or less office work and paperwork, things like that. And then I was asked to take on a head coach job for 8th, 9th grade kids this year. I accepted that. That was no easy task.
I bet.
A lot of adversity just within that we had to overcome as a team. We had, kids getting kicked off the team for attitudes. We had parents, removing their kid off the team because they didn't agree with coach's decisions. So there's a lot of adversity we went through as a team together. So that was pretty cool. And then as far as I still play hockey as well for the Minnesota Warriors, which is an all-veteran hockey team. And then my son plays hockey too. So it was a winter full of just hockey.
Wow. That's awesome. And if you guys didn't catch this, I want to just pinpoint something critical, and that's or very important. And it's, if you're doing it and you had clearly you had a very difficult, challenging life, and you've gone through a lot of obstacles, and now you've made that big breakthrough. Like, there shouldn't be no excuse for anyone to say, I cannot do it because I'm addicted to this or I'm addicted to that, or whatever the case may be. There's just stay with that. At the end of the day, you can definitely overcome anything if you put your mind into it, right? And I like the way you put it. You mentioned earlier, or actually you sent me something, and you said that you can overcome anything with the right mindset and realizing it is all a choice. And so that is exactly what you've done. You've taken your life and said, I'm not going to have this. I'm going to have a better, life. And I want to have the time, the freedom, be able to do all these different things, which is awesome. Now, in the coaching, do you find yourself, besides coaching them how to play hockey, do you find yourself giving the youth any kind of advice, when it comes down to just life in general outside of the hockey, or is more concentrated to just hockey? And I'm just asking that because obviously, going back to what you've gone through, it's like that for me. I would say it would be a good opportunity for me to give people back and give them the chance to say, hey, just because they're playing hockey doesn't mean that outside, there's not things that could, take place.
Right. And so I was never like a big motivational speaker to the kids in the locker room. I always told them at the beginning of games or whatever the case may be that it doesn't matter what I say standing in this locker room. I can't motivate you. You have to motivate yourself. I can say what I could preach for 10 minutes, and that's not going to give you motivation. If you don't want to play, you're not going to play, right? So I was never a big motivational speaker in the locker room. Just more or less kind of flat out told them, hey, this is up to you, and you guys are the only ones that can make it happen, right? Now, when we were on the bench, things like that, we had a lot of players. This was their first year in checking league, or many of them. This was their first year checking. So you can imagine the amount of kids I dealt with coming up to the bench crying, hey, he hit me, he did this, he did. Yes, that's part of the game, right? So I think that in a way I did do exactly what you had said, but not in a direct manner to the team, right? I think it was more of an individual basis of, hey, you can't go through this game crying and dwelling on a penalty that wasn't called, right? We'll use that for an example. Same thing in life, right? You can't dwell on what took place 12 months ago.
Right.
You're never going to get anywhere. So I think I did a lot of off the ice stuff with them, but just in a different manner.
Yeah, right. And I didn't see it until right now that you were talking about it. I can see how playing the sport of hockey, or maybe any sport for that matter, now that I think about it, is very relatable to life, right? Too. And the one thing that just struck me right now is that you're at the locker room and you can give them this really good speech, and if it doesn't matter what you say, if they're not motivated, then they're not going to be able to do anything in that game. And as I think about that, that's the same thing in life, right? You might be listening to somebody that is speaking and all that stuff, and you might be spending all this money and time and effort, Yet if you come out of that and you're like, you're still not convinced, or you still don't want to make that change, then life is not going to change for you. Right. And so I'm glad you mentioned that, and hopefully our listeners got a chance to see that or hear that, because that's definitely critical. Jim Rohn talks about this, and he says, for things to change, you got to change, not life. For things to change, you have to change. Right. And so it's exactly what you're talking about. Now, you're also involved with a lot of networking groups, right? Talking about hanging around with the right crowd and the right type of people. What kind of networking do you do?
I follow a lot of Ryan Stewman stuff.
Okay.
And
I think that's how you and I got connected. I'm not part of his community, but we have a lot of mutual friends that have gone through his program.
Like Sid and Tiffany.
Yeah, right.
I know I talked a lot to Tiffany back when I was going through the phase with the narcissisticness in my life. Things like that. So I do like Ryan a lot because I can relate a lot to Ryan.
Yeah.
Just because of the backgrounds.
Right.
And he's just got energy like I do.
Yeah.
But I've done more of, I've really cut my circle down, right?
Okay.
I've taken, my circle's small, and there's a reason for it. And then I have tried to do more of the networking stuff with different players in the game in the direction that I want to move, right? It's not an overnight deal. Right. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in 6 months. But if you continue to put the work in, eventually, with the right people, the right opportunities will come when you're doing the right thing.
Right. And with the right mindset, you got to stay focused and stay certain, because a lot of times people can lose that faith in translation or in the process. And so is that one saying, as much as you want the end result, you have to enjoy the journey. The journey is what counts. Not, the end result is going to come regardless, is the journey. And this is part of the journey, right?
I think that's one big thing that I actually, now that you say that, I think that's one big thing I learned over the course of, I would say, last couple of years, is I think I've always been an impatient person. Right? If I wanted it now.
Now, yeah.
And so I would always look at, hey, what can I do to get rich quick? Or what can I do here for immediate results, right? And that's not the case. It's, you got, the more focus and vision you have in the path you want to go, with the combination of putting in the work, you'll get there. But there's nothing that is get rich quick.
Right.
And I think that was a huge mind shift for me, was to realize that I need to better myself, better my mindset, and put the work in to get the results that I want.
Yeah, that's good. So I'm actually curious to know, because I think it would be good for the listeners, if you want to share, why are you, very careful on your group of people and downsizing the group of people that are in your network?
Because I generally have a big heart.
Okay.
And I'll typically, how do I phrase this the way I want? I will put myself behind somebody else to help them. And in my experience, I have even good people that I thought were good people that I thought wouldn't do that, did that, right? So I've really took a selfish point of view on things moving forward of, okay, this is the path I want to go. And if you don't support me in that path, I don't want you around at all.
Yeah.
So I've really cut down the group of people, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to go where I want to go with the wrong people around me.
Yeah. Right. You've had your first share, and you've learned from your past experience, And so, definitely I commend you for that. And that's one thing too. We were talking about this, what happened 12 months ago or last week or an hour ago, that's gone. That cannot, you cannot change that. However, and a lot of people get hung up on that. I think, what's his name? I forget his name right now. The guy from The Miracle Morning, that book. Anyways, he talks about the past being a rear view syndrome. People tend to just look at that rear view mirror and they get hung up on that. Except it's, Les Brown talks about it and he says it's really more of an experience. An educational experience is merely a lesson for you to learn. And I believe that if you don't grow off of that lesson or that experience, then you're no better than your past. And if you want to be able to go to the next level in your life, you have to grow out of that past experience, right? Learn from that and do something different. And so that's exactly what you're doing, and that's I love that because you can definitely relate that to a lot of people, and people can see that you truly can overcome a lot of those obstacles, right? Are there any particular habits or things that you do now, that you have more time to think and have more of that mind shift? Like, are there any daily routines that you do to help you stay positive and in a powerful state of mind?
Yeah, I do. Have you done the GCode?
No,
Ryan?
I know.
So I jumped on board with that.
Okay.
It's an app that he has out. It's called the GCode.
Yep.
And he's got a book too that kind of goes in depth about what the philosophy of GCode is, right? I won't get into that right now, but long story short, you wake up in the morning and you write down 5 things that you're grateful for right away, right out the gate. That way you start your day with something positive, right?
Yeah.
You're grateful for this or you're grateful for that. Then you go through the day and it goes, did you work out? Did you maintain your diet today? What wins did you have for today? So say, you were quitting smoking, right? You made it through the day without smoking. You write that down as a win. It's like a daily log that you can always go back and look at. So I've kind of adopted that into my lifestyle. Not so much to where I want it to be yet, but I'm moving in that direction of it. And I believe it just helps stay focused.
Yeah.
Right? On some key areas of your life that make a big difference. And like Ryan says, if you're not grateful for anything, you're not going to be grateful for what's to come, right? Because if you're not grateful for what you have right now, how are you going to be grateful when you get everything else handed to you?
Right.
So I've been really practicing that aspect.
Okay, no, that's good. That's good. Nick, is there anything else that you want to share with us? Any last minute thoughts that you have before I ask you one last question?
Not that I can think of it. One thing that I do want to point out that you did touch on a couple minutes ago was there's lessons to be learned everywhere, right?
Right.
So that was one big key thing that I did this year with my hockey team was after every loss, I never called it a loss. I called it a lesson.
Yeah.
So when we got in that locker room, I would ask them, what lessons did you learn from today? What lessons did you learn from this game? Right? So I'd always convert that into lessons, and then I'd make them tell me what those lessons were. I already knew what they were, but I made them tell me for accountability reasons, right?
Right.
And then throughout the whole season, you could see the attitude and mind shift of how they approached the locker room after they did lose, which was kind of cool to see that transition over the hockey season of just a simple, hey, there's lessons to be learned in every loss, right?
Right.
Focus on the loss, focus on the lesson.
Yep. And
throughout that time, it made a big difference on their mindset.
Yeah. That's very powerful, and when we start seeing things from a different perspective, And it's like words do matter, right? How you speak to people, how you speak to yourself, the things you tell yourself. When you start looking at things from that perspective, and you start seeing it from that perspective, things can really shift your life. And same thing with this. When you start seeing that there's really no failures, there's really no losses, it's all a lesson, it's all something that you can improve upon, and you focus on that, and you focus on that positivity or those lessons. Again, like you mentioned, you see the transformation of people, and the way they go about it. So that's very, very powerful. That people have to really embrace in anything that they do in their lives. So that's really good, man. Nick, you've given us so many really good ideas and a lot of great feedback, and really want to say thank you for sharing your story, and also giving us really good points, because you have a lot of great points that I think people can relate to and utilize on their day-to-day life. You kind of already answered this. I'm still going to ask you though, is, you clearly are a person that has been able to overcome anything, right? What will be one thing that you can tell people they can do today to start overcoming anything in their life that they might be facing today?
I would have to say, make a choice. If
Yep.
And it could be anything. If you're not happy with your relationship with your son or your daughter, make a choice to make a better relationship. If you're not happy with your spouse, make the choice. Either figure it out, go to counseling, do something, or split, right? I firmly believe you just got to make the choice and stick to what that decision is, as long as it's in the best interest for yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Obviously we don't want people going and making bad choices.
Right. Exactly. No, definitely not. But, and again, it's you have it. I mean, it's really, I forget who I heard this from. Every successful person, they don't dwell on making decisions. They make the decisions and instantaneously, right? And
right.
And obviously, they actually have a little bit of a understanding of that decision, right? Except if for whatever reason that decision is a negative outcome, or something that doesn't seem to be positive, you've learned from that. Okay, well, now you learn not to do it that way and move on to the next one, right? So
Right.
a lot of people do lose time, sleep, and all of that on just making that decision, right? So
Right.
I definitely love that. So Nick, thank you so much. If people wanted to connect with you, maybe just check out, the things that you might be coming up in the near future, how can they connect with you?
Facebook.
Awesome.
Facebook's
Yeah.
easiest.
Right, exactly. Everybody's in Facebook or Instagram. And for our viewers and listeners, I'm actually going to have that information for you guys down here. So on the comments, so you can actually reach out to Nick if you want to, connect with him.
I think my phone number's on there too. Somebody ultimately needed, say something resonated with somebody and they just need some more clarity on it, whether it's a drug addiction or
definitely
whatever the case may be, they can always reach out on my cell phone too and
shoot
me a text or something. Not that I'll respond immediately, but I'll get back to you.
Yeah, definitely. And if you have a kid that's in Minnesota and wants to play hockey, also reach out to Nick.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
we're all about it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Nick, thank you so much for spending time with me and coming on to the show. And definitely really appreciate all of the knowledge. And you truly are someone that can overcome anything in their life.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
Yep. And for the rest of you guys, please make sure that you follow us on Spreaker.com or Apple Podcast. Check us out on YouTube and also on social media. Till next time. See you next time.
Do you feel stuck? Do you feel like life is against you? Do you feel like you can't get ahead? Well, we have a podcast for you. You can overcome anything with Cesar Espino, real estate investor and real estate coach, NLP practitioner, and author of the book of the same name. Cesar will show you a way to overcome anything in your life through talking with people from all walks of life that have done just that. You can overcome anything podcast available on Spreaker.com.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you tuned in to this podcast. You can find me at Spreaker.com, where you can like and subscribe. And to learn more about myself and my services, you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com, or you can also find me at Facebook under Cesar R Espino. Once again, thanks for joining me. I am looking forward to having you at the next episode, and know that you truly can overcome anything.